Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen stood at attention before the holographic display in Earth Space Command's primary briefing room, her expression carefully neutral as she studied the ornate diplomatic message floating before her. The Galactic Council's invitation sparkled with the characteristic shimmer of quantum-encrypted transmissions, its formal language barely concealing an underlying tone of condescension. "They want to inspect one of our battleships," Admiral Harrison said, his weathered face showing a hint of amusement. "Specifically, they've requested our most representative vessel for a full evaluation by their technical committee." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "And you want them to see the terminus, sir?" "Indeed." The Admiral's eyes twinkled. "On paper, it's one of our standard patrol vessels, perfect for satisfying their curiosity without revealing too much." The terminus had been Sarah's command for 3 years now, and she knew every bolt and circuit of her ship. More importantly, she understood what made it special, not just the technology, but the philosophy behind its design. The aliens were about to learn some interesting lessons about human ingenuity. "When do they expect us?" she asked, already mentally preparing the crew rotation. "The Council's inspection team will arrive at Proxima Station in 72 hours. The Admiral forwarded a detailed dossier to her neural interface. "They're sending quite the delegation. 3 senior inspectors and their technical staff." Sarah scanned through the profiles. Senior Inspector Engstral from the Meridian Confluence caught her attention. Their species was known for its rigid adherence to theoretical perfection in spacecraft design. "This should be particularly interesting." "Permission to speak freely, sir." The Admiral nodded. "They're expecting to find primitive technology, aren't they? Something they can quietly dismiss." "That's the general impression, yes." Harrison leaned back in his chair. "Humanity's been in space for barely 50 years. The youngest members of the Council have been exploring the stars for millennia. They can't quite understand why we've been so reserved about sharing our military specifications." Sarah thought about the terminus, about all the innovations that would challenge their preconceptions. "Do we have any specific guidelines for the inspection?" "Keep them safe, show them what they asked to see, and remember that you're representing Earth." The Admiral's expression grew serious. "But you have full discretion on how to conduct the tour. Just remember, we're not trying to intimidate anyone. This is about establishing mutual understanding." "Understood, sir." Sarah straightened her uniform. "We'll give them a tour they won't forget." Back aboard the terminus, Sarah gathered her senior staff in the tactical planning room. As she outlined the situation, she could see the mixture of pride and anticipation in their faces. They all knew what their ship could do. "Rodriguez," she addressed her chief engineer, "make sure all systems are running at optimal efficiency. I want them to see everything working exactly as intended." "Already on it, Captain," Rodriguez replied with a grin. "I've got some ideas about how to present our engine configuration that should really get their attention. Just remember, we're not showing off. We're simply demonstrating our standard capabilities." Sarah looked around the room. "They'll be scanning everything, so maintain normal operations. Let them draw their own conclusions." As her staff dispersed to prepare their departments, Sarah remained in the tactical room, studying the detailed profiles of their upcoming guests. The Council's inspection team represented some of the most technologically advanced civilizations in known space. Their ships were marvels of specialized engineering, each designed to fulfill its role with theoretical perfection. They were about to encounter something very different. Human ships weren't built to be perfect. They were built to be practical, adaptable, and resilient. The terminus represented humanity's approach to space. Expect the unexpected, prepare for anything, and always have a backup plan for your backup plan. Sarah smiled as she sent the preparatory orders to her crew. In 3 days, the Galactic Council would learn that humanity's approach to spacecraft design was anything but primitive. They just didn't know it yet. The terminus emerged from hyperspace with surgical precision, its angular form casting a sharp silhouette against the backdrop of swirling nebula clouds near the Council station. Sarah watched through the bridge viewport as the inspection team's shuttle approached, their sensors already actively scanning her ship. "They're certainly thorough," Lieutenant Park commented from the tactical station, monitoring the incoming scan patterns. "Their equipment is having trouble categorizing our hull composition." "I imagine they'll have quite a few questions about that," Sarah replied, straightening her uniform. "Status report. All systems nominal, Captain," Park confirmed. "Engineering reports the reactor is running at standard efficiency, and all departments are ready for inspection." The alien shuttle drew closer, its crystalline structure refracting starlight in rainbow patterns. Sarah could see why many species considered human ships crude by comparison. Where their vessels featured organic curves and translucent materials, the terminus presented clean lines and practical angles, its reinforced hull, designed for functionality rather than aesthetics. "Captain, they're requesting permission to dock," Communications Officer Jung announced. "Senior Inspector Engstrom sends his compliments." "Grant them access to Docking Bay 3, Sarah ordered. "Honor guard to position, and inform all department heads to prepare for arrival." As she made her way to the docking bay, Sarah reviewed the incoming sensor data through her neural interface. The alien shuttle carried the expected delegation: 3 senior inspectors and 4 technical specialists, each from a different council species. Their preliminary scans of the terminus revealed their focus on the ship's power distribution and structural composition. The docking bay's massive doors parted smoothly, admitting the shuttle into the pressurized chamber. Sarah stood with her honor guard as the alien vessel settled onto the deck with characteristic precision. The ship's crystalline surface dimmed as it powered down, and a shimming portal materialized along its side. Senior Inspector Engstrom emerged first, his tall, slender form moving with deliberate grace. Like all Meridians, his iridescent skin reflected the bay's lighting in subtle patterns, and his 4 eyes blinked in careful sequence as they adjusted to the human lighting levels. "Lieutenant Commander Chen," he greeted her with a formal bow. "We appreciate your willingness to host this inspection. I must say, your vessel's approach was impressively precise for its design philosophy." Sarah returned the bow exactly as protocol demanded. "The terminus is honored to receive such distinguished guests. We look forward to sharing our technological perspective with the Council." The other inspectors emerged, a Zexithra representative whose bioorganic environmental suit pulsed with internal light, and a quantum collective analyst whose hovering form suggested they existed in multiple probability states simultaneously. "If you'll follow me," Sarah gestured toward the main corridor. "We've prepared a comprehensive tour route. We'll begin with an overview of our basic systems before moving to the specialized departments." As they walked, Sarah noticed the technical specialists constantly adjusting their scanning devices, their confusion evident in their hurried movements. The quantum collective analyst actually split into 3 probability forms briefly, each trying different scanning frequencies. "Is something wrong with your equipment?" she asked innocently. "Our scanners are struggling to classify several of your systems," Engstrom admitted. "The power signatures we're detecting don't match any known configuration in our database." "Ah," Sarah nodded, maintaining a diplomatic smile. "Human engineering often combines multiple approaches to solve complex problems. I'm sure Chief Engineer Rodriguez will be happy to explain our methodology when we reach engineering." "Multiple approaches." The Zexithra inspector's translator rendered their tone as skeptical. "Surely that would reduce efficiency compared to a single perfected system." "That depends entirely on how you define efficiency," Sarah replied as they approached the first inspection point. "We find that adaptability often proves more valuable than theoretical perfection." She gestured to the display panel showing the terminus's current status. The aliens gathered around it, their scanning devices working overtime to process the information. Sarah watched their reactions with carefully concealed amusement. They hadn't even reached the interesting parts yet, and already their preconceptions were beginning to crumble. The real surprises were still to come. The engineering bay doors parted with a soft hiss, revealing a space that immediately challenged every preconception the alien inspectors held about human technology. Instead of the crude, industrial environment they'd expected, They found themselves in a pristine facility where holographic displays danced through the air, monitoring systems that defied conventional classification. Chief Engineer Rodriguez stood before the main reactor housing, her crisp uniform adorned with the subtle pins of multiple engineering certifications. "Welcome to the heart of the terminus," she said, gesturing to the pulsing core behind her. "This is where things get interesting." Senior Inspector Engström moved forward, all four eyes fixed on the energy readings displayed by his scanning device. "This cannot be correct," he muttered, adjusting the settings. "The power signature suggests, but that would be impossible." "Impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet," Rodriguez replied with a friendly smile. She approached a control panel, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Would you like to see our propulsion system in action?" The quantum collective analysts split into 5 probability states simultaneously, each one analyzing the data from a different perspective. Their translated voice came through with an unusual tremor. "Your ship appears to be using multiple forms of propulsion simultaneously. The energy should be tearing itself apart. Unless," Rodriguez said, activating a demonstration sequence, "you find a way to make them work together." The holographic display expanded, showing a real-time visualization of the Terminus power distribution network. "Watch this." The assembled aliens observed in stunned silence as the ship's propulsion system smoothly transitioned between different modes of operation. Matter and antimatter reactions synchronized with fusion pulses, their outputs harmonizing in ways that their most advanced theoretical models had declared impossible. "But the thermal load," the ZS-3 inspector protested, their environmental suit pulsing with agitation. "The waste heat alone should be enough to cook us all." Rodriguez finished. "That was one of our biggest challenges. Would you like to see how we solved it?" She led them to a secondary display, bringing up schematics of the ship's thermal management system. The aliens crowded around, their scanning devices working overtime to process what they were seeing. "You're not just dumping the heat," Engström realized, his iridescent skin flickering with excitement. "You're using it. Every source of energy has potential," Rodriguez explained, highlighting different sections of the system. "The trick is finding ways to make them work together. The heat from our primary systems feeds into secondary processes, which in turn support tertiary systems. It's all connected." The quantum collective analyst's probability forms suddenly merged into a single focused entity. This design philosophy, it contradicts everything we know about optimal engineering. Each system should be perfected independently, not interlinked in this way. Rodriguez exchanged a knowing look with Sarah. Sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected combinations. "Watch this." She initiated a power fluctuation simulation, demonstrating how the ship's systems automatically compensated and redistributed energy loads. "Remarkable," Engström whispered. "Your ship doesn't just adapt to changes, it anticipates them. The entire power grid is in constant flux, yet somehow maintains perfect stability." "That's the key difference in our approach," Sarah explained. "We don't aim for perfect stability through rigid control. We achieve it through constant, measured adaptation." The ZX-3 inspector's translator struggled to convey their mix of confusion and admiration. "Your species has been in space for less than a century. How did you develop this technology so quickly?" "We had some advantages," Rodriguez said, bringing up another display. "We never assumed anything was impossible. When conventional solutions didn't work, we tried unconventional ones. And sometimes," she smiled, "sometimes the best answers come from combining old ideas in new ways." As if to emphasize her point, the reactor core pulsed with a subtle rhythm, its multiple energy signatures dancing together in a harmony that defied conventional physics. The aliens' instruments continued to struggle, trying to categorize what they were seeing in terms they could understand. But understanding would require them to first accept that everything they knew about power systems might be wrong. Still processing the engineering revelations, the inspection team followed Sarah through the Terminus central corridor. The quantum collective analyst had remained in a single probability state since leaving engineering, a sign of intense focus for their species. "Your power systems are certainly impressive," Senior Inspector Engstral admitted, his scanning device now aimed at the corridor walls. "Though I notice similar unusual readings throughout your structural components." Sarah smiled. "Actually, that brings us to our next demonstration." She touched her neural interface, connecting to the ship's systems. "Lieutenant Park, initiate containment breach scenario 3 in Section 7. The effect was immediate. Warning lights pulsed along the corridor as a simulated hull breach alert sounded. Before the alien inspectors could react, the entire section of corridor ahead of them began to transform. Panels shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Support struts emerged from hidden compartments, forming new pathways as the compromised section sealed itself off. Within seconds, an entirely new corridor had formed, routing around the damaged area. "By the stellar Concordat," the HFY inspector whispered, their environmental suits bioluminescence flickering rapidly. "The entire ship is mutable. Adaptive architecture," Sarah explained, leading them through the newly formed passage. "Every section of the terminus can reconfigure itself to respond to damage or changing mission parameters." She paused at an observation window, giving them a view of the sealed-off section. Maintenance drones were already swarming the simulated breach point, their actions coordinated by the ship's damage control systems. "But the structural integrity," Angsttroll began, his iridescent skin pulsing with confusion. "How do you maintain hull strength with so many potential failure points?" Rodriguez, who had joined them for this part of the tour, stepped forward. "That's the interesting part. The adaptable sections actually make the overall structure stronger. Here, let me show you." She accessed a nearby terminal, bringing up a microscopic view of the hull material. The entire superstructure is composed of interlocking segments that can shift and redistribute stress loads. When one section is compromised, the surrounding areas compensate automatically. The quantum collective analyst finally split into two probability states, each examining the structure from a different perspective. This design philosophy contradicts established principles of starship architecture. Yet, the practical applications are undeniable. "Would you like to see something really interesting?" Sarah asked, noting their growing appreciation. "Lieutenant Park, prepare for multi-vector configuration." New warning tones sounded throughout the ship. The alien inspectors watched in amazement as entire sections of the terminus began to shift and realign. Support beams retracted and extended, hull plates slid into new positions, and power conduits rerouted themselves automatically. "The terminus," Sarah explained as the transformation continued, "can separate into 3 distinct, fully operational vessels." The demonstration reached its climax as the ship completed its reconfiguration. Through the observation windows, the inspectors could now see how the hull seams aligned perfectly with predetermined breakdown points. Each section, Rodriguez added, maintains its own power, life support, and propulsion systems. They can operate independently or recombine as needed. Angsttroll's scanning device actually shut down, its classification algorithms overwhelmed by the complexity of what it was trying to analyze. This level of adaptability, it should make the ship weaker, more prone to failure. Yet your structural integrity readings are higher than our most robust designs. That's because we don't see adaptation as a weakness, Sarah explained. In nature, the most resilient systems are often those that can change and respond to new challenges. We simply applied that principle to starship design. The HFY inspector's translator took several moments to process their next question. How many different configurations are possible? That depends, Sarah replied with a slight smile, on how creative we need to be in the moment. The ship's transformation protocols can adapt to almost any situation we encounter. As if to emphasize her point, the terminus smoothly reversed its transformation, components flowing back into their original positions with fluid precision. The alien inspectors watched in silence, their preconceptions about human engineering capabilities undergoing a transformation of their own. The weapons control center of the terminus hummed with quiet efficiency as Sarah led the inspection team through its reinforced doors. Lieutenant Park stood ready at the main tactical station, holographic displays showing the status of various defense systems. "I notice," Senior Inspector Engstral said carefully, "that I don't see any standard plasma cannon emplacements or quantum torpedo tubes." "That's correct," Sarah replied, gesturing to the tactical displays. "We took a somewhat different approach to ship-to-ship combat." Park initiated a demonstration sequence, and the main hologram expanded to show the terminus of primary weapon systems. Instead of the expected energy weapon hardpoints, the display revealed a complex network of multi-purpose launch tubes and adaptive targeting arrays. "Our main armament," Park explained, "consists of modular deployment systems. Each launcher can be configured for different mission profiles within minutes." The Quantum Collective analyst studied the specifications with intense focus. "These launch tubes, they're designed to handle multiple ammunition types. Everything from standard kinetic penetrators to specialized payloads," Park confirmed. "The system adapts its launch parameters based on the selected ammunition type and tactical situation." Sarah nodded to Park, who brought up a simulation of the targeting system in action. The aliens watched as virtual projectiles curved through space in ways that seemed to defy normal ballistics. "How are you achieving these trajectories?" the Zexithra inspector asked, their environmental suit pulsing with curiosity. "These movement patterns don't match any known guidance systems." "That's because we don't just guide our projectiles," Sarah explained. "We create localized space-time distortions to alter their paths. The same technology that allows our ship to transform also lets us manipulate the space around our weapons." Engstrol's iridescent skin flickered rapidly. "But the power requirements for such manipulation would be normally prohibitive," Rodriguez finished, having joined them for this part of the tour. "Unless you have a power distribution system that can handle multiple types of energy simultaneously." Understanding dawned in the aliens' expressions as they realized how the various systems they'd seen work together. The engineering innovations, the adaptive architecture, and now the weapons systems, all were interconnected in ways their specialized approach to technology had never considered. "Let me show you something else," Park said, switching the display to the defensive systems. "This is where human innovation really shines." The hologram showed layers of overlapping defensive measures. Traditional energy shields were present, but integrated with something the aliens had never seen before. "Predictive defense grids," Sarah explained. "The system doesn't just react to incoming fire, it anticipates it. By analyzing enemy weapon signatures and firing patterns, we can begin defensive maneuvers before they even pull the trigger." "That's impossible," one of the technical specialists blurted out. "No computer system can predict." "Who said anything about just using computers?" Park asked with a slight smile. "The system combines artificial intelligence with human intuition. Our tactical officers' neural interfaces allow them to feed their combat instincts directly into the targeting computers." To demonstrate, Park connected to the system. The aliens watched in amazement as the defensive grid responded not just to data, but to his intuitive understanding of space combat dynamics. "Your species," Engstral observed, "seems to have a unique talent for combining technologies in unexpected ways. We find that the best solutions often lie at the intersection of different approaches," Sarah replied. "Why limit yourself to a single path when you can draw from multiple sources?" The Quantum Collective analyst had split into 3 probability states, each one analyzing a different aspect of the weapon systems. "Your approach to combat is like your approach to engineering. Adaptable, integrated, and highly unpredictable. Those are qualities we value," Sarah acknowledged. "In space, conditions can change in an instant. The ability to adapt and respond creatively often makes the difference between survival and defeat." As if to emphasize her point, Park initiated another simulation. The aliens watched as the Terminus's weapons system smoothly transitioned between different configurations, each adaptation presenting a new and unexpected challenge to potential adversaries. The inspection team's expressions shifted from confusion to curiosity as Sarah led them into a spacious chamber filled with natural light simulated by advanced environmental systems. The room featured comfortable seating areas, gaming stations, and what appeared to be a small indoor garden. "This is our primary recreation deck," Sarah explained, watching as the aliens took in the unexpected sight. "Every crew member spends at least 2 hours here during their daily rotation. Recreation, during active duty." The HFY inspector's environmental suit pulsed with confusion. Is this not inefficient use of crew time and ship resources? A group of off-duty crew members were engaged in what looked like a holographic strategy game in one corner. Others tended to the small garden plots, while some simply sat in comfortable chairs, reading or engaging in quiet conversation. "Actually," Rodriguez said, joining a crew member at one of the garden plots, "some of our best technical innovations came from ideas developed during recreation time. The mind works differently when it's relaxed." Senior Inspector Angstrom studied the scene with all 4 eyes, his scanning device forgotten in his hand. "Your crew appears remarkably comfortable with each other, regardless of rank. Hierarchy has its place," Sarah acknowledged. "But so does open communication. Would you like to see something interesting?" She gestured to a nearby wall where hundreds of small plaques were mounted. These are innovations suggested by crew members. Everything from minor efficiency improvements to major system redesigns. The Quantum Collective analysts split briefly to examine multiple plaques simultaneously. These improvements, they came from crew members of all ranks. Some of our most significant breakthroughs came from junior crew members who saw things from a fresh perspective, Sarah explained. Like this one. A maintenance technician 3rd class redesigned our power distribution nodes after noticing a pattern during routine inspections. They moved through the recreation deck to a connected section that housed the crew quarters. The aliens' surprise only grew as they saw the comfortable, personalized living spaces. "Each crew member has private quarters," Sarah continued. "We found that providing personal space significantly improves long-term performance and mental well-being. But the resource allocation required for such amenities," Angstrom began, "is offset by the improvements in crew performance and innovation." Sarah finished. "Happy crew members are effective crew members." They passed a training room where a group of engineers was running combat simulations. What caught the aliens' attention wasn't the sophisticated holographic technology, but the way the crew members freely discussed and debated different approaches. "Your training methods are unusual," the HFY inspector noted. "In our fleets, junior crew members would never question a superior's tactical decisions." Lieutenant Park, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "The best solution isn't always the one that comes from the highest-ranking officer. We encourage everyone to think critically and share their insights." To demonstrate, Park initiated a training scenario. The aliens watched as crew members of various ranks worked together, each contributing ideas and observations without regard for hierarchy. The resulting strategy was a creative combination of multiple suggestions. "This collaborative approach," Sarah explained, "is why our ships can adapt so quickly to new situations. Every crew member is encouraged to think independently while working as part of the team. It seems," Angstrom observed, "that your ship's adaptive nature extends beyond its technical systems to its crew structure." "The two are inseparable," Sarah replied. "The Terminus isn't just a collection of advanced technologies. It's a living ecosystem of human innovation and cooperation." As if to emphasize her point, a junior engineer approached Rodriguez with a datapad, excitedly explaining a new idea she'd had during her recreation period. The aliens watched as the chief engineer listened intently, asking questions and offering suggestions, the normal barriers of rank temporarily forgotten in the pursuit of improvement. The inspection tour was nearing its conclusion when the station's emergency alert system activated. Red warning lights pulsed through the corridors as Lieutenant Park's neural interface lit up with incoming data. "Captain," he called out, his voice tense but controlled. "We have a situation. The station's automated defense platform has suffered a critical malfunction. Its targeting systems are active and cycling through possible threats." Senior Inspector Engstrol's iridescent skin paled. "That platform carries enough firepower to destroy multiple capital ships. If its friend-foe identification is compromised." "Station Control reports their override commands are being rejected," Park continued. "The platform's automated systems are interpreting all attempts at access as hostile actions." Sarah watched as several Council vessels began emergency departure procedures, their crystalline hulls glowing as they charged their drives. She turned to her alien guests. "I apologize, but we'll need to cut the tour short. I suggest you return to your shuttle. You're not evacuating." The HFY inspector's environmental suit pulsed with alarm patterns. "The Terminus is the only ship currently in range with the capabilities to handle this," Sarah replied, already connecting to the ship's command systems through her neural interface. "Lieutenant Park, battle stations. Rodriguez, I need those special modifications we discussed ready in 5 minutes." The transformation was immediate. The comfortable, relaxed atmosphere vanished as the crew snapped into practiced efficiency. Yet there was no panic, no confusion, just smooth, coordinated action. "But the defense platform's shields," Engstrol protested. "They're based on classified Council technology. You can't possibly." "With respect, Inspector," Rodriguez interrupted, her hands dancing across engineering controls. "We don't need to understand their exact specifications. We just need to understand energy patterns." She glanced at Sarah. "The multi-spectrum analyzers are online, Captain. The adaptable countermeasure systems are ready." The alien inspectors watched in amazement as the Terminus moved into position. The defense platform, its sensors confused by failing circuits, turned its weapons toward the human vessel. "Multiple targeting locks detected," Park reported calmly. "Platform is charging main batteries." "Show them what we can do," Sarah ordered. "Initiate adaptive defense sequence. Deploy countermeasure configuration 3. The ship's previously demonstrated systems came to life in perfect synchronization. The hull began shifting, presenting constantly changing angles to the platform's targeting systems. Power flowed through reconfigured conduits, feeding energy into systems that didn't exist minutes ago. "Fascinating," the Quantum Collective analyst murmured, their probability states merging in focused observation. "Your ship is learning the platform's patterns in real time." They were right. Each time the platform attempted to lock on, the Terminus's systems analyzed the energy signatures and adapted. The ship's movements, seemingly random, followed patterns that emerged from the combined intuition of crew members and artificial intelligence. "Rodriguez," Sarah called out, "how close do you need to be for the override?" "Given the shield frequency we've mapped, 30 kilometers should do it," the engineer replied, monitoring the complex data streams flowing through her station. "Platform firing," Park announced. The energy beam lanced out, but the Terminus was already moving. Its predictive defense grid had registered the power buildup microsecons before the actual shot. The beam passed through empty space as the ship executed a maneuver that should have been impossible for its size. "Now," Sarah commanded as they reached optimal range. "Execute containment protocol." The ship's adaptive launch systems deployed, but instead of weapons, they released a cloud of specialized drones. Each one carried a fraction of the complex code Rodriguez had developed, approaching the platform from multiple angles. The drones, Engstrol realized, they're mimicking authorized Council signatures, but they're also doing something else. Creating a resonance pattern, Rodriguez explained with professional pride. Each drone adds to the effect, until the platform's shields flickered and died. Its weapons powered down as the emergency shutdown finally took hold. In the sudden silence, Sarah turned to her stunned guests. "I believe," she said with a small smile, This concludes the practical demonstration portion of our tour. The council chamber hummed with excited conversation as Senior Inspector Engstral presented the inspection team's findings. Holographic displays showed various aspects of the Terminus's capabilities, from its adaptive architecture to its innovative power systems. In conclusion, Engstral addressed the assembled representatives, his iridescent skin shifting through patterns of emphasis. The human vessel demonstrated technological capabilities that challenge many of our fundamental assumptions about starship design. The Quantum Collective's representatives split into 7 probability states, each one processing different aspects of the report. Their approach to engineering appears chaotic, yet produces remarkable results. The incident with the defense platform alone suggests technological sophistication far beyond what we expected. Sarah stood quietly at the chamber's presentation area, Rodriguez and Park flanking her as the council discussed their findings. The chamber's crystalline architecture caught and amplified every whispered comment, every surprise exclamation. "What concerns me," the HFY council member's translator conveyed, "is not just the technology itself, but its implications. If this represents standard human military capability, we may need to reassess our understanding of their civilization's advancement level." Sarah cleared her throat softly, drawing the council's attention. "If I may offer a small clarification." The council leader gestured for her to continue, multiple appendages moving in formal patterns. "There seems to be a misunderstanding about the Terminus classification," Sarah said, maintaining careful diplomatic composure. "You requested to inspect one of our battleships, but that's not what we provided." A wave of confusion rippled through the chamber. Engstral's skin shifted to patterns of uncertainty, but we observed its combat capabilities firsthand. The power systems, the adaptive architecture, the defensive innovations are all standard features, Rodriguez added, of our patrol vessels. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the Quantum Collective's representative merged into a single, stunned probability state. A patrol vessel. The council leader's translator struggled to convey their tone. "You mean to tell us that this ship, which demonstrated technology we believed impossible, is merely a patrol craft?" "The Terminus represents our standard approach to medium-range patrol and reconnaissance," Sarah confirmed. "She's a capable ship, certainly, but not designed for major fleet actions or extended combat operations." Park activated a small holographic display, showing the relative size classifications of human vessels. The Terminus appeared near the bottom of the scale, dwarfed by the larger silhouettes above it. "Our actual battleships," Sarah continued, "are considerably more sophisticated. They incorporate several additional technologies that we're still classifying for potential sharing under Alliance protocols." The council chamber erupted in overlapping conversations. Representatives hurriedly consulted with their technical advisors, trying to process the implications of this revelation. "I believe," the council leader finally announced, their translator now perfectly conveying their mix of respect and apprehension, "we need to reconsider our approach to technological exchange with humanity." "We would welcome that," Sarah replied diplomatically. "There's much we could learn from each other. Your specialized achievements in individual fields are remarkable. Perhaps by combining our different approaches, we could achieve even greater innovations." Engstral stepped forward, his skin now showing patterns of profound respect. "You knew, didn't you? Throughout the inspection, you knew we were underestimating your capabilities." "We believed it was better to show rather than tell," Sarah answered with a small smile. "Actions speak louder than specifications." The council leader rose, their crystalline form catching the chamber's light. "Lieutenant Commander Chen, we would be very interested in establishing a joint technological development program, perhaps starting with a proper inspection of one of your actual battleships." Sarah's smile widened slightly. "I'll forward your request to Earth Command. I'm sure they'll be delighted to arrange a demonstration." She paused for effect. "Though you might want to update your scanning equipment first. I understand the readings from the Terminus nearly overwhelmed your current systems." As the chamber filled with appreciative laughter, Sarah exchanged knowing looks with her crew. Sometimes the best way to establish mutual understanding was to exceed all expectations, and then reveal you were just getting started.